Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hari Om. Okay, let's get started.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्री गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धनामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पीडीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् पंकजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Okay, Hari Om. I was going to say my first first satsang as a newly minted grandfather, but that's not true. Last one was the one. I forgot about it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, second satsang as a new grandfather. I don't think I sent a picture. I should send a picture of this group. I will do that after the satsang. Okay, Hari Om. So we continue with chapter 17, Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga. It's the yoga of the threefold faith. Faith is inherent to us. I mean, we are what our faith is. And that faith essentially is because of the gunas that are there. So based on the gunas, thereby the faith also is there within us. So that is what this chapter is about. And Bhagwan, we saw in the last satsang, Bhagwan, in response to Arjuna's question, he had said that faith of the embodied is inherent in their nature. Shraddha Dehinam Swabhavaja is part of the Swabhava of the embodied, the Dehinam. And then he said, Shraddha Mayo Yam Purushaha. A person consists of the person's faith. And Yo Yat Shraddha Sa Eva Saha. What one's faith is, one surely is that. See, this chapter actually is very, very important for us because, Bhagavan is saying a person consists of one's faith. And what one's faith is, a person is surely that only. So it is very important for us to understand Shraddha in its right sense. And this is the chapter that teaches us what faith is, what Shraddha is. But Bhagavan also said they worship with faith, Arjuna. But whom do they worship and how do they worship? That obviously comes from the gunas. And Bhagavan said, Yajante Satvika Devan. The Satvik or the pure people, they worship the Devas. Yajante Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasaha. The Rajasic or the passionate people, they worship the Yakshas and the Rakshasas. Pretan Bhuta Ganans Chanye Yajante Tamasaha. The Tamasic people worship ghosts, hosts of nature spirits and other such elements. So what they worship is a very critical aspect, even if they worship with faith. Critical aspect from what perspective? From the progress in the spiritual path perspective. And how do they worship is the other element. So Bhagavan had said, how do they worship? Ashastra Vihitam, not prescribed in the Shastras. Ghoram, terrible. Dambahankara Samyuktaha, associated with ostentatiousness, showing off, and Ahankara, egoism. So showing off, whether it is for showing off purposes or ego, Damba Ahankara. Kamaraga Balanvitaha, propelled by the force of lust and attachment. Karshayantaha Sharirastam, torturing the body. Achetasaha, such a kind of worship itself is senseless. Achetasaha means without intelligence, lacking in intelligence. So such a kind of worship is in itself senseless. And Bhagavan said, not only is this kind of worship senseless, Mam Chaivantaha Sharirastam, I reside within the bodies of these embodied, of these Dehinam. And because they are doing all of this, this is troublesome to me also. To the one, that pure consciousness, that Bhagavan who resides within us, it is troublesome to us. So now faith is also closely interconnected, intertwined with our nature. And we have had a very full chapter of studying about our nature, about our guna. That is clear to us. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, we have studied extensively. Arjuna's question is about a person who has faith. The Shraddha is there, but does not know the scriptures, which means the person has not studied about Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, or for that matter, any other aspect. But inherent faith is there. Arjuna's question is the faith of the person, is the Shraddha of this person, is that Sattvic or Rajasic or Tamasic? And Bhagavan's answer is, it depends. It depends on what? It depends on the type of faith the person has. Tamasic Shraddha implies tamasic person. Rajasic Shraddha implies rajasic person. And Sattvic Shraddha implies sattvic person. That's pretty obvious actually, right? Because Bhagavan has also said a person is what one's faith is. So what one's faith is defines the person, the nature of the person also. And to help us identify what one's faith is, to help us identify the type of Shraddha, Bhagavan takes up 4 important indulgences of the human being. And these 4 are food or ahara, sacrifice or yajna, austerities. Actually, austerities is not the right translation for tapa. We will also talk about that in a little bit more detail, but commonly tapa is referred to as austerities. That is how it is referred to as. That's why, because it's commonly referred to as that, austerities or tapa, and charity or dana. These are the 4 major aspects. See, because at the end of the day, we saw this earlier also, we are what our Shraddha is, but we are our body, mind and intellect. That is how we are in this world, as our body, mind and intellect. So, my mind is going back again and again to Noor, the small baby. It's amazing to experience a newborn. It's absolutely amazing, and after a number of years, I'm experiencing, right? So constantly, like my mother was saying, she's right there in front of my eyes. Similarly, it's always there. So how the human being comes into this planet, right? And after coming into this planet, what is there? It's essentially the body, mind and intellect which are there. And how the person, that soul within is now getting accustomed to this samsara. It is a beautiful process. And after knowing Bhagavad Gita, observing a newborn is another, after learning, not knowing, there is a long way to know per se. But after learning, after studying, when you observe a newborn, you are observing a newborn in a very different set of eyes or a different set of mind. But this is essentially the body, mind and intellect. And Bhagavan takes up these 4 elements. Just think about them carefully. Food, what we eat and how we eat. Okay. Yajna, sacrifice in the typical translation. But yajna is how we work. What we do and how we work, that is yajna. And tapa, how we live, how do we live our life. And dana, how do we give. Give means give everything. How do we interact with our surrounding, our body, mind and intellect, and then all the other body, mind and intellects that are around us. How do we give to that rest of the environment? So these are the 4 elements that Bhagavan takes up to identify the type of Shraddha a person has. How we eat, how we work, how we live, tapa. Again, austerity or live is a very loose translation. Let's just say tapa, how we do tapas and how we give. So these are the 4 aspects that Bhagavan takes up to explain the type of Shraddha that the person has. And he classifies these 4 aspects as sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. That is how we identify the nature of the Shraddha also, by classifying these 4. So very interesting verses of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and very important for us to understand and relate to this, because this is how life is on a day-to-day basis. So that is why Bhagavad Gita is relevant for all times, because this is how life is, whatever may be our situation, whatever may be our environment. So very, very interesting verses and important for us to understand them. Let's go to verse 8.
Ayusattva-balarogya
Ayusattva-balarogya
Sukha-priti-vivardhanaha
Sukha-priti-vivardhanaha
Rasya-snigdha-stira-hridyaha
Rasya-snigdha-stira-hridyaha
Ahara-satvika-priyaha
Ahara-satvika-priyaha
आयुस्सत्त्वबलारोग्य सुखप्रीतिविवर्धनाः रस्या स्निग्धा स्थिरा हृद्या आहारा सात्विकप्रियाः
Vivardhanaha, that which enhances. What enhances? That which enhances everything. First one, ayuhu, longevity. Sattva, purity or vitality. Bala, strength. Arogya, good health. Sukha, joy. Preeti, sense of ease. Rasyaha, the savoriness. Snigdaha, tenderness. Sthiraha, the firmness, the substantiality. Hridyaha, the agreeableness. What is all this? Araha, food. Such food, satvika priyaha, are dear to the satvika. So Bhagavan is saying what the satvika, espouse, what is dear to the satvika. And thereby it is implied that people who indulge in this are also of satvika nature, right? That which enhances longevity, purity, vitality, strength, good health, joy, sense of ease, and the kind of food which are savory, tender, firm, substantial, agreeable, such food are dear to the satvika. So Bhagavan is listing out aspects that make the food dear to the satvika people. Ahara satvika priyaha. So the first, and he says, vivardhanaha, that which enhances. So food which enhances certain qualities is said to be dear to sattvic people. And what are those qualities? Number one, longevity, ayuhu. The lifespan of a person is based on karma. So lifespan, nobody can determine. Food cannot determine lifespan. But the ability to live long is longevity. That is ayuhu. And food that enhances longevity is what is referred to here. Sattva, the inner vitality and purity that supplies energy and focus for concentration. See, for us to live life, this kind of energy is required for concentrating, for focusing on whatever we are doing. And especially if we are meditating. Meditation requires immense amount of focus and concentration. And that is sattva, inner vitality, the food that gives that quality. Balarogya, bala is strength, arogya is good health. And sukha priti, sukha is joy while eating it. While eating, there is no disturbance. And priti is sense of ease after eating. After eating, we are not grumbling, the stomach is not grumbling, or we are not struggling. So while the above qualities or traits, they are those that appeal to sattvic people, aspects of food also Bhagavan touches upon. The savoriness, the tenderness, the firmness, and the agreeableness. Rasayaha, snigdha, sthira, hridaya. All these aspects, they also are ideal for optimal digestion, and they then enhance the vridhavan aspects, the qualities that need to be enhanced. Why? Because naturally these belong to the human body, mind, and intellect. All these aspects, right? So they enhance. These aspects are one that are means to cultivate sattva. So essentially working on the mind through your food. So if we indulge in such kind of food, if we partake in such kind of food, if we eat such kind of food, consume, then we are working towards making the mind sattvic. And Bhagavan continues.
Katvam lalavanatyushna
Katvam lalavananatyushna
Tikshna ruksha vidahinaha
Tikshna ruksha vidahinaha
Ahara rajasasyeshta
Ahara rajasasyeshtha
Dukkha shokamaya pradaha.
dukkha shokhamaya pradaha.
Katvam lalavanatyushna tikshna ruksha vidahinaha ahara rajasasyeshta dukkha shokamaya pradaha.
So we saw food that helps us enhance sattvic aspects or enhance our sattvic nature. What enhances rajasic nature, or what is dear to rajasic people? What type of ahara food, right? Ati, that is most crucial here. Ati is kind of merged in between in the verse, but that is the most crucial. Ati means excessive. Food that is excessive in what? Katu is bitter, excessively bitter. Amla, excessively sour. Lavana, excessively saline, too salty. Ushna, excessively hot. Tikshna, excessively pungent. Ruksha, excessively dry. Vidahinaha, excessively burning. Burning and Ushna, we know how to interpret. Temperature hot and the mirchi wala hot. Okay. Vidahinaha, burning. Pradaha. And so these are the qualities. And what do? Pradaha, they produce. Produce what? Amaya. Amaya means disease. Shoka. Shoka is grief. Dukkha. Dukkha is sorrow. And such kind of food, rajasasyeshtha, are liked by the rajasika people. Foods that are excessively, ati is more important. Ati is to be linked with all the aspects. Excessively bitter, excessively sour, excessively saline, excessively hot, excessively pungent, excessively dry, excessively burning. And these food produce disease, grief, and sorrow, and are liked by Rajasika. Rajasika, fundamentally passionate people. So, oh, so much mirchi, but I love it. Give me more. You know, you're sweating, but oh, this is great. This is great food. Give me more, that kind of. So, like I said, ati is excessive. And food that Rajasic kind of people enjoy are excessive in nature because of that underlying passion. There is a saying in Sanskrit, ati sarvatra varjayet. That means that anything in excess is bad, or everything in excess is bad. This saying is actually there is also a saying in Tamil, alavukku minjina amurdamam nanju. Anything that exceeds is in excess, even if amrita is so, that is not good, it's poison. So this saying shares the key to sustainable art of living. We hear so much about sustainable life, sustainable living and all that. This is the key to a sustainable art of living. And it emphasizes the importance of staying within appropriate limits. As long as we stay within appropriate limits, nature is going to preserve itself. Nature has the inherent power to preserve itself. It's the human being who keeps exceeding the limits and actually abusing the limits, which then causes all the disturbances that we see in nature. So Rajasic tendencies are very, very responsible for all the disturbances that we see around us. So in the case of the Rajasic, everything is excessive. See, we are talking about anything and everything being in excessive is not good. For Rajasic, everything is excessive. And Bhagavan actually specifies food that is excessively having the qualities that we talked about. And those are liked by people of Rajasic temperament. So when such food is indulged in, okay, now when such food is indulged in, what? Excessively, that also excessively, right? It leads to dukkha shoka maya pradaha. So dukkha shoka amaya. Pradaha means produce. It leads that consumer of the food, that consumer comes to grief, sorrow, and disease. What do we do normally in a Rajasic environment? We consume all of this food Okay, so we consume food that leads to these aspects and we counter it. See, that is the typical Rajasic way of living. So if I have got indigestion, if I have got burning stomach, hey, have Digene, here it is Tums, whatever that medicine is, right? The digestive thing, right? So have it, enjoy it, do whatever you're doing in excessive. Then, by the way, there is a solution to that. Go ahead and take that solution. So that is how we, or let's say the Rajasic people, live their life. And that is what is dear to them. What is dear to the Tamasic? Let's see that in the next verse.
Yatayamam gatarasam
Yatayamam gatarasam
Uti paryushitam chayat
Uti paryushitam chayat
Uchishtamapi chamedhyam
Uchishtamapi chamedyam
Bhojanam tamasapriyam
Bhojanam tamasapriyam
Yatayamam gatarasam Uti paryushitam chayat Uchishtamapi chamedhyam Bhojanam tamasapriyam.
So the bhojanam, the food, yat, which, yata yamam is stale, gata rasam is tasteless, puti is putrid, foul smelling, paryushitam, rotten, cha, and ushchishtam, the refuse, the leftovers, cha, and amedhyam, impure. Such a kind of food, tamasa priyam, is liked by the tamasic people. Food which is stale, tasteless, foul smelling, putrid, rotten, and also leftover scraps or refuse, and impure food which is unfit for worship is liked by the tamasic people. In the modern world, in today's world, see, there are two things which have happened. There is lifestyle limitation. Our life is so busy because of which we are not able to devote enough time to, say, cooking or the basic fundamental aspects. We sleep less, we cook less. Why? Because we are running around all the time. And not only that, lifestyle has limitations today. Lifestyle also has enhancements today, improvements. So we have solutions. We have the refrigerator. So man discovers or invents things to suit the lifestyle that the human being adopts. So human being discovers, right? And the lifestyle that they adopt, you have to discover a solution for that lifestyle. So if you are having stomach burn, you have acidity, you have the digestive thing, the gelusil or whatever. If you are not able to cook, you have the refrigerator to store cooked food. Not only that, there is also genetic processing that is now resulted in processed food being available in the shelf. Pre-cooked, processed, all of that. And all of this is being increasingly consumed. Not just genetically processed, even otherwise, scientifically processed, let us say. So all this kind of processing using various techniques. Now, some of this, if not all, does become stale and tasteless. But still, we go ahead and consume because where is the time? And Bhagavan says, Yata yamam, food which is consumed 3 or more hours after cooking. Yama is a measure of time of 3 hours. And food that is consumed after 3 hours of cooking is tamasic, liked by tamasic people. Gata rasam is food that has lost its vitality. The rasam in the food is gata, gone. Gata means gone. So the rasam that is gone, the vitality of the food is left it. It's exactly like, when the life goes, the vitality goes. So the food has lost its vitality. After that, you are eating it. Puti, food that smells bad before cooking, during cooking, or after cooking. Paryushitam, that is food which is either rotten or stored overnight food is also called paryushitam. or processed food is also called paryushitam. Uchishtam, leftover scraps. Amedhyam, leftover scraps means something that has been eaten and then kept, not cooked and then kept, eaten and then kept. That is uchishtam. Amedhyam, food that is unfit for worship. It cannot be offered to Bhagwan. Now coming to yajna or sacrifices. What are the types of sacrifices that people of different temperament engage in? That Bhagwan covers in the next verse.
Aphalankankshiviryajnaha
Aphalakankshibhiryajnaha
Viddhi drishto ya ichyate
Viddhi drishto ya ijyate
Yashtavyameveti manaha
Yashtavyameveti manaha
Samadhaya sa satvikaha
Samadhaya sa satvikaha
Aphalankankshiviryajnaha Viddhi drishto ya ichyate Yashtavyameveti manaha Samadhaya sa satvikaha.
So Bhagwan has told us what type of food, is sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Bhagwan does not tell us this food is sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Bhagwan does not tell us eat this, don't eat that. Bhagwan does not dictate anything to us. Bhagwan never told Yudhishthira gamble or don't gamble, which is the start of why did Bhagavad Gita happen? Because thanks to Yudhishthira, he gambled. Right? If he had not gambled, Bhagavad Gita would not have happened. So he never told. But we also saw, when Bhagwan is questioned, we also saw that, right? That what kind of a friend are you? You never supported the Pandavas, right? At that time. So Bhagwan does not tell us do this, don't do that. He shows us the path and leaves it to us to choose. So he showed that for the food. Now he's showing that for yajna. Yajna is sacrifice. Yajna is what we do, the work that we do. That is yajna. See, we also saw that when we do anything, we sacrifice something else, right? That is how the two are connected. Yajna, sacrifice, worship, work. So sacrifice is when you choose to do something over something else. So when I choose to get up in the morning and work out, I sacrifice my rest, my sleep. But then I feel more energetic later. That's a different matter, what the outcome is. So that is why that work is related to yajna or sacrifice. Yajna is also related to worship. Work is worship. It's a very common term that we have all seen. So that is how yajna, sacrifice, worship, these are all interchangeable terms for us to understand and relate to our day-to-day life. So Bhagwan says, only that, eveti, only that yajna, sacrifice, which vidhi drishtaha, performed as stipulated, aphala kankshibhihi, without desire for fruits, ijyate, performed, samadhaya, with firm faith, saha, that, yashtavyam, which ought to be done, satvikaha, is satvik. So only that sacrifice, only that work, only that kind of worship, which is performed as stipulated in the scriptures. Okay, if you are firing a rocket, then there is a scriptural textbook on how to fire a rocket. If we fire the rocket in a different way, then prescribed in that book, then that rocket is going to crash or it's not even going to take off. So whatever we do, right? So is performed in a way it is stipulated, without desire for fruits, performed with firm faith, that it ought to be done. You're duty bound to do it, right? Something that is ought to be done. This kind of work, this kind of yajna is satvik. So Bhagwan says, aphala kankshibhi yajnaha. So this is something that he has said again and again and again. Repeatedly, Bhagwan has eulogized the performance of action without any desire for fruits of the action. Again and again and again, he has done that. He has also said that fruits belong to the future. And if you are looking at or thinking about the fruits or thinking about the result while performing action, the excellence in action itself gets affected. Because when the mind is focusing on the fruit, the mind is not focusing on the action itself. The sacrifice of focus on action is happening because element of mind is focusing on the result. So the quality of the action itself gets impacted. If the quality of action gets impacted, consequently, the fruit also gets impacted. So in various ways, Bhagavan has taught us that it is worthless to think about fruits while doing work. So now he terms this kind of performance of work or yajna as the sattvic way of working, without desire of fruit. A mother who serves her baby, now I'm seeing even mother, wife, father also. I see both Prahlad and Nisha. They serve their baby absolutely selflessly, without expecting anything in return. My daughter Vashni was saying the other day how Prahlad is, so nice to his baby. And yeah, of course, Nisha is also, they serve absolutely selflessly. They find satisfaction in such service. They're not thinking that it is service. And then Bhagavan says, Yajna Vidhi Drishtaha and Yajna Yashthavyam. These are prescribed obligatory duties, what ought to be done. See, we saw about this earlier also. Niyatam Karma. Niyatam Karma are of two types, Nitya Karma and Naimittika Karma. Nitya Karma are daily duties, regular duties, duties that are there, which without, if the duties are not there, then the robust living is not possible. Sleeping, without sleeping, robust life is not possible. Eating, bathing, worship, daily worship, paying bills, following rules, all these are Nitya Karma. These are required, they are regular duties. Naimittika Karma is because of occasion. Nimitta. Nimitta means occasion. Duties that arise from what our role is. Role as a father, role as a mother, role in the office, role in society, what the vocation is, what our position is, what the circumstances are. All of these. Together, these two are the duties that bind us. We are bound to perform that action. We don't have a choice. If we don't, then we are doing wrong thing, right? We ought to do this. So that is what Bhagavan means when he says Yajna Vidhi Drishtaha and Yashtavyam. Bhagavan says Sa Sattvikaha. This kind sacrifice, work, worship done in this manner is Sattvic worship. See, there are two types or two traits, that pertain to people who work selflessly and with love for what they do. You are tending to your small little born who's just born a week ago, but you're doing it very, very selflessly. And there are two traits that pertain to such people, for whom the work that they do is worship. While working and after working. While working, they do what they do for the sake of it, not for their own sake, for the sake of the work. By the way, not for the sake of the other individual in various examples. You're working for some, no, they just do it for the sake of work. The new parents are not doing work for the newborn child. They are doing for the sake of the work. It is duty's sake. It's like, ye kyun kar raha hai? Karna hai bhai. I have to do, that's why I'm doing. Why are you doing it? I have to. So it could be for duty's sake. It could be because there is inherent satisfaction in doing that work. And it could be also just, I have to do. So time flies by when we are performing such work. You don't even know. You'll start it in the morning, suddenly it's dark at night. You don't even realize that 8-9 hours have passed by. Time flies by. While doing the work, you are doing it for the sake of the work. And then the second thing is later in future, the trait of the person later after the work is done, they move on. They do not linger in, oh, I did this for you. I did this for the society. I did this for such and such a purpose. No, they move on. These are traits that classify the kind of work whether it is that type of sattvika work or not. See, when the Pandavas were in exile, Draupadi asked Yudhishthira, why is it that you have these series of troubles? You, this, embodiment of dharma. Why is it that you only have all of this? And Yudhishthira's response was, behold, O queen, look at this beautiful forest. In their adoration, is there any space in the mind for anything else? So such people just move on. And now Bhagavan continues with the Rajasic kind of yajna.
Abhisandhayatu phalam
Abhisandhayatu phalam
dambhartamapi chaivayat
dambhartamapi chaivayat
ijyate bharata shrestha
ijyate bharata shrestha
tayyajñam viddhi rajasam
tayyajñam viddhi rajasam
abhisandhayatu phalam dambhartamapi chaivayat ijyate bharata shrestha tayyajñam viddhi rajasam.
Bhagavan addresses Arjuna as Bharatarshaba, O best of Bharatas. Bharatarshaba, best of Bharata. Best of Bharata is who? The king. So, O king, O ruler, O emperor. Why? Because typically emperors are of Rajasic nature. They have these. So that is why when he talks about Rajasa kind of work, Rajasic kind of sacrifice, he addresses Arjuna as Bharatarshaba. So the king also should know how to balance. And he says, but tam, that yajna, sacrifice, yat, which, ijyate, performed, which is performed, ijyate, abhisandhaya, seeking, phalam, the fruit, cha, and api, also, dambhartam, for ostentation, for showing off, self-glorification, viddhi, know it to be, rajasam, to be a rajasic one. This verse, you have to go back and forth in the verse when you go word by word. Okay, so please note that when you go through this again. So this is the beauty about poetry, right? So poetry is, you have, when you translate poetry, you may not be in the right sequence. In this verse, it is all over the place. So, O best of Bharatas, O king, O emperor, but that sacrifice which is performed seeking the fruit and also for ostentation, know that to be a Rajasic one. See, every action has a result, one kind of the result or the other. Now, this result is called either Punya or Papa. We have seen this earlier also, by the way. Punya is favorable result and Papa is unfavorable result. Typically, good action leads to Punya, typically, and bad action leads to Papa. The result of bad action is unhappiness, and the result of good action can be one of the two, joy or happiness. Okay, bad action, let's leave it aside now, right now, not very relevant. Which of the two result of good action, whether it is joy or whether it is happiness? Now, what is the difference between joy and happiness? Joy is short-lived, happiness is long-lived. So whether it is short-lived happiness or long-lived, inherent fulfillment, let's call it, or happiness, whether it is one of these two, that depends on the attitude of the person performing that action. So the result of that action is punya. Punya is essentially credit. And the encashment of this credit depends on the attitude of that person. It happens in two ways. When the action is performed with the intent, there is an intention inside for obtaining a particular result. And you are constantly focusing on that fruit while performing that action. Or you are performing that action, but the intent is to show off. You have an audience and the reason for doing that action is to showing off to that audience, right? The resultant punya, it gets expended in that intent itself, in achievement of that intent. So it brings about the joy, which is temporary, but the punya is exhaustive. This kind of a result is materialistic result. It is materialistic as nature, and it is sought for by people who are rajasic in nature. When it is formed without, so in the previous verse, Bhagavan had talked about sattvic type of action, right? When action is performed without any intent, the resulting punya leads to purity of the mind. And that purity of the mind contributes to, equanimity of the mind. We have said, last week also I told you to go through the spiritual path. Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi leads to Chitta Ekagratha, which is you're able to focus. So that is inherent, that leads to core happiness. It doesn't get expended. That is sought for by the sattvic people. Now, while yajna is some kind of a sacrifice or work or action, yajna is also sacrifice in the form of worship. When you perform worship to a deity, for example. But then worship to a deity, worship to that higher ideal, worship to Bhagavan, worship to Lord, that cannot be done with a bartering spirit. So we go to the temple, Bhagavan, you have to give me this back. I am coming to see you, this is what I want in return. I am doing this aradhana for you, this is what I want in return. I am going to perform a big yajna, this is what I want in return. I am going to build a temple, this is what I want to. So any kind of oblation that is favor seeking, with an appeal for favor, with an appeal for sometimes mercy, sometimes, with an appeal for, I'm suffering, so please ease off my suffering. Please provide mercy, Bhagavan. Or it is done for self-glorification, showing off, to show to the society, hey, I built this temple. My name is there in so many pillars inside that temple. So many temples have my name inscribed in those temples, right? For that kind of work. That is rajasic in nature. And these are detrimental to spiritual progress rather than helping spiritual progress. So Bhagavan has taught us that in sattvic yajna, sattvic way of working, performing the work, the result is purity of mind. He has taught us that in rajasic way of working, rajasic yajna, the result is material benefit. In tamasic yajna, there is no result. That we shall see in the next verse. Why is that so?
Vidhihinam asrishtanam
Vidhihinam ashishtranam
mantrahinam adakshinam
mantrahinam adakshinam
Shraddha virahitam yajñam
Shraddha virahitam yajñam
tamasam parichakshate
tamasam parichakshate
Vidhihinam asrishtanam mantrahinam adakshinam Shraddha virahitam yajñam tamasam parichakshate.
So Bhagavan says vidhihinam, devoid of the prescribed method. Ashrishtanam or ashrishta annam, without giving food or due. Mantrahinam, devoid of mantras, devoid of process. Adakshinam, devoid of gifts, not sharing the benefit. Shraddha virahitam, completely devoid of faith. Yagyam, such sacrifice, parichakshate, is declared as tamasam, tamasic. See, I'm also trying to link, the modern way of, if you look at the word itself, when it says ashishtanam, that means without giving food. But I'm trying to look at it in modern terms where, I'm not going asking food anywhere, but not giving due. Similarly, mantrahinam, not following process. So we'll go through each one of them. But just want to tell you that we can relate it to the way we live today. So Bhagavan says sacrifice that is devoid of the prescribed method, devoid of giving food or dues, devoid of mantras or process, devoid of gifts or benefit sharing, completely devoid of faith. So see, Shraddha is not even here, by the way. Such sacrifice is tamasic. See, Bhagavan had said that a person is what one Shraddha is. Here there is no Shraddha. So where will the result be of the work that that person is doing? Bhagavan gives 5 causes why tamasic yajna has no result. Number 1, vidhihinam. Performance that is devoid of method, not done in a prescribed manner. Taking medication without following prescription. Doctor has given a prescription, but you do what you want to do. Similarly, yajna have a prescribed method and must be done in that manner. Not following them is vidhihinam. Vidhihinam is also refers to work that is prohibited. See, earlier we talked about what ought to be done. Karma that ought to be done. What ought not to be done, doing that is vidhihinam. Ashrishtanam. When what is due to the participant other participants who are there in the work, that is not given. For example, you perform yajna, you're supposed to give food to the participants. By the way, you are supposed to distribute food to general society also after performing yajna. Yajna in the true sense of having a fire and performing that yajna. The participants are supposed to get food. Any prayer, any worship, you have a prayer in your home, you're supposed to feed the people who come. Not only that, you're supposed to feed general society also. But in our context, not paying salary to staff. For example, what our friend Vijay Mallya did, right? So many Kingfisher employees never got salary, never got paid. That is Ashrishtanam. Mantrahinam, devoid of mantras. Mantras are basically external indication of doing the right thing in a correct manner. That is why Vedic mantras, the way you recite, the tone, the method, and also the words, the syllables, everything is very, very critical. So they are external indication of doing the right thing in the correct manner. So doing the right thing in the wrong manner or doing something correctly which is not right, both don't count. Doing right in the right manner. Following the process. Devoid of process is mantrahinam. Adakshinam, devoid of gifts, what is offered as gratitude. Not sharing, for example, ESOPs, like there is this, a lot of people, it is known in society that, or people say, I don't know if it is right or wrong, say about 5-10 years ago, they said, oh, Narayana Murthy shares, but Premji doesn't share. I don't want to go into right or wrong, but a lot of people share wealth, a lot of people don't share wealth, right? That is adakshinam. What should be given with gratitude? That is not due. It's not due, by the way. It is not salary. It is not the food which we just talked about. With gratitude, what you give, if you don't give, is adakshinam. Shraddha virahitam, performed without faith. Rahita means devoid. V means completely, there is no Shraddha. Shraddha itself is not there. Yagyam parichakshate tamasam. Such a yajna is tamasic. So now Bhagavan moves to tapas. I think we'll do the next 3 verses also if everyone is okay. Otherwise, people are dropping off. Please listen to the recording later. See, tapas is holy means for a human being to emerge as the divine. Any human being, there is divinity within. How do you unveil that divinity within yourself? And when you unveil that divinity within yourself, you appear divine also. So this emergence of that divine happens through tapas. Before classifying tapas as sattvic or rajasic or tamasic, Bhagavan explained what tapas is. What is tapas? And what are the types of tapas? This is based on, by Bhagavan, okay, on the instruments that are used for performing tapas, Okay, so the instruments that are used for performing tapas, they are the sharira, the body, the vak, the speech, and the manaha or mind intellect. See, the body, mind, intellect, we talked about it. This is what we have. The body, the mind, and the intellect, and of course the soul. But the body, mind, and intellect are the instruments. these instruments. But within the body, there's another instrument called speech, which is also extremely critical. So Bhagavan says that these are the instruments for tapas: the sharira, the vak, which is speech, and the manaha, which is the mind intellect. And when these three are modified by tapas, then the person becomes better and better and better. So let's see what these are. Then the nature we will take up in the next satsang. Actually, are you all okay? Because it's already 8:35. We have time, but the question answer session will kind of get a little, or we can extend beyond 6:30 also. Okay, so most people are in agreement. So yeah, let's go ahead.
Deva Dvija Guru Prajna
Deva Dvija Guru Pragya
Pujanam Shauchamarjavam
Pujanam Shauchamarjavam
Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha
Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha
Shariram Tapa Uchyate
Shariram Tapa Uchyate
Deva Dvija Guru Prajna Pujanam Shauchamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha Shariram Tapa Uchyate.
So this is, I'm not going to do word by word translation. You look through the notes for that, okay? Because there's really lack of time. So performing tapas through the body. Shariram tapa uchyate. This is called tapas through the body. So living through the body. So what is living? Living essentially means where you are able to, through the process of living, you are able to bring out that divine. That is how living is defined when we grow in the spiritual path. So living through the body. So worship of the deities or gods, worship of the twice born, worship of the teachers, worship of the wise, and then cleanliness, straightforwardness, abstinence, and non-injury. These are called tapas through the body. Now, Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda ji said, and I quote, to maintain an attitude of harmony with a higher ideal, through which the meditator picks up the qualities of the meditated, is called worship. So one who is trying to break away from the bondages of the body, mind, and intellect and the gunas, they must have an attitude of devotion towards a higher ideal. Whatever that higher ideal may be. Like Federer's higher ideal is tennis, which I was given as an example earlier. Whatever deity, whatever god, that is Deva. That higher ideal is the Deva. So worship of the Devas. Dvija is twice born. One is the normal birth, when a child is born. And the second birth comes from realization of the truth, realization of the self. The one who knows the Brahman. The one who knows the Brahman is called Brahmana, actually. So one who has attained Jivan Mukti. So worship of such a Brahmana, one who actually knows the Brahman, whoever it may be, is Dvija, worshipping the twice born. Guru, from whom we learn. In that sense, the parents are the first gurus. They are the first teachers. Pragya, one who has attained spiritual knowledge and is also able to apply that spiritual knowledge and also share that spiritual knowledge. To offer shariram tapa. Shariram tapa. Shariram tapa means like prostration, namaskar, to the another, especially these kind of people who have been described above. Okay. This is the tapas that Bhagavan is talking about. And to be able to do that, there are some basic, Bhagavan defines some basic prerequisites. Number one is shaucham, cleanliness. One cannot prostrate to a revered one without basic cleanliness, both internal and external. Prostrating somebody and under say, you are giving gali, you are abusing that person and outwardly prostrating is not shaucham. Similarly, filthy, stinking is not shaucham. To prostrate, you need cleanliness. Even otherwise, Shaucham is very, very important. There is a saying in Tamil, Kandalanalum kasaki kattu, Kuranalum kulittu kudi. My mother used to say this often when we were children. So even Kandalanam means even a tattered cloth, wash it and then wear it. And even if it is porridge for the utmost poor, first bathe and then drink it. Arjavam, straightforwardness, alignment of physical actions with the Shastras. Unless a spiritual seeker diligently practices straightforwardness, a split personality develops in that person, which then results in loss of composure and tranquility. So if split personality is there, see, alignment and straightforwardness, if it is not there, leads to split personality. Split personality leads to disturbance. There is no composure and tranquility. Brahmacharyam, constantly reveling in the contemplation of the Supreme, enjoying the contemplation of the Supreme, Brahman, is called Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya doesn't mean one who is not married in this context. Okay, that's a loosely used analogy. One who is constantly thinking about Brahman is Brahmacharya. Brahman Acharya. Brahmani charati iti brahmachari. One who walks that path of thinking about the Brahman. That constant thinking, that constant reveling, that requires abstinence. Practicing and exercising self-discipline. See, sometimes brahmacharyam is also referred to as celibacy. That is not correct. Strictly speaking, that's not the right way. Celibacy is also called amaitunam, not propagating, right? So sexual discipline is not the only one. Overall abstinence, overall self-discipline is brahmacharya. Not overindulging at the physical level in any samsaric activity. Ahimsa, not causing pain to the other creature in the physical sense. Refraining from knowingly causing any harm to other elements of creation. Bhagavan says, Shariram tapa uchyate. All of the above is described as tapas at the physical level. Tapas is not living a life of brutal self-control, torture. It's not that. It is an intelligent method of living life in a manner which is compatible to the world around us. This then results in conservation of energy, which is used for spiritual growth and pursuit. Now, actually, Bhagavan discusses tapas at speech, and you know what? I will repeat tapas next week again. Okay, or whatever related to tapas, verse 14, that I will repeat next week. I think I'm trying to cover too much in one satsang. Let me not do that. Let's stick to the discipline of time, and I will repeat this verse 14, what I have done now. So we will conclude today, and we'll take it up next week from verse 14 onwards. Okay. Thank you, Hari Om. We will conclude today.
Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyote gamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, or questions for today?
Srini, I have a question.
Yes.
How do we explain the character of Karna? He was charitable, he had tapas and the other two gunas also. So where does he fit in exactly? While he was still with the on the side of the adharma, is that what makes him tamasic, or because the rest of the 4 habits which are mentioned, at least my feeling is he qualifies in all the 4 of them.
Correct. So Pandu, I would say the first thing is, I don't think Bhagwan is, or the way we interpret his teaching is not as if it's a qualification or anything like that. So that is the first thing that I would comment on your question or comment. None of this is really a qualification. Bhagwan is just teaching us what are the various, so earlier he taught us about the guna, the sattva, rajas, tamas guna. Okay. Now he's teaching us about shraddha. And typically Bhagwan says, to repeat, he says, we are what our faith is. That is who we are. And to explain what faith is, he is, and what is the quality of the faith? Is it sattvic or rajasic or tamasic? Because a person who has sattvic faith is sattvic. A person who has rajasic faith, rajasic. Tamasic faith, tamasic. So he is then explaining through various aspects of the way we live in this world with our body, mind, and intellect, and through way we work, we perform yajna. So all of those aspects, he is teaching us, what the various elements are. I wouldn't really call it a qualification, but to your question, Karna, what kind of a person or what kind of a life he did? Number one, obviously he had tremendous faith. The faith towards the Duryodhana, and there was a logic in his faith also. So not only did he have faith, there was a great element of logic in his faith. Why he is so loyal to Duryodhana. And he understood that some of it may be adharma, or a lot of it may be adharma, but still he said, I choose to live in this manner. So my interpretation of Karna's character, because all the characters in Mahabharata are for us to learn various aspects, right, of this, what we are reading. So my interpretation of Karna's character would be a person who very rajasic in nature, with a very high level of shraddha, faith, but yes, like you yourself said, not aligned to dharma at the end of the day. And Bhagwan gives the aspects of rajasic faith also, right? We read that. So Karna would come under the quote-unquote rajasic faith. But yeah, these are things which we can think more deeply about and discuss, because a lot of elements will come through. If you have any thought in that, Pandu, please tell, because that's the best way to describe Karna. High faith, but high rajasic element of faith.
Yeah. So basically, I don't have anything further. It always every session keeps me wondering, thinking, what should be the right interpretation, and how do I personally try and follow whatever has been said in Gita.
Yep, and I would say that's it's really good that you are actually thinking about a character like Karna and trying to see where that character fits in, because that is the thought process that gives us the how to modulate our day-to-day way of living. Especially in today's world, it is sometimes we find ourselves at Duryodhana, sometimes we find ourselves at Karna, sometimes we
actually,
find ourselves
personally, I think Karna is the most intriguing character in the whole of Mahabharata. He has all the right things, but on the wrong side.
Bhishma, the right, even more right than Karna, but completely on the wrong side.
Yeah.
True, I agree with you. But all of these characters are essentially meant for us to learn and choose ultimately who we want to, modulate ourselves and be like. And that's what that term which I normally use, Siddhasya Lakshanani, Sadhakasya Sadhanani. So we take among these Siddhas. Karna is a Siddha. In various ways, he is a Siddha. right? Even Krishna acknowledges that. Whereas Duryodhana, you can't call him a Siddha. But Karna's Lakshanas, yeah, some of those we can be our sadhana. Some of them we can choose no, not to. Even Yudhishthira, right? There are small little few things about Yudhishthira's way of life, which are learnings for us not to do.
Actually, other than blind loyalty of Karna, everything else is something which probably one should aspire to be.
Yeah, I mean, for us to study and reach a conclusion on that, but yes, definitely a Siddha who we can emulate in a lot of ways.
Srini, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do you see Yudhishthira's decision of going for gambling? In which category? Yeah.
That actually we had covered this earlier also, but it will be, I can't go into that much detail. I'll encourage you to go back and maybe I can tell you exactly where. But see, I see that as his personality weakness, the karma, the extreme karma for gambling, for the extreme weakness for that. So when a person has extreme desire for any particular thing, so as much as Ravana had extreme desire for Sita, Yudhishthira had extreme desire for this vice called gambling, and that led to a lot of trials and tribulations for him in his life. So that is a weakness of his character, of his personality, of the Dharmaputra, the embodiment of Dharma. And at that moment, when he's gambling, he also, see, oftentimes when we are doing something which we know is wrong, we push God away from our mind and intellect.
Right.
We look the other way. We refuse to acknowledge the presence of God is there. He's present. We refuse to acknowledge the presence, which is exactly what Yudhishthira did. He knows Krishna is there. He knows Krishna is a friend. Okay, and Uddhav Gita, this is what is said in Uddhav Gita. Krishna tells Uddhava that, see, Uddhava, Duryodhana very cleverly, he said that I will play through Shakuni, or Shakuni will play for me. Yudhishthira could have said that Krishna will play for me. I would have played for him. If Yudhishthira had said that Krishna will play for me, I'll agree to Shakuni playing for you if you agree to Krishna playing for me. Yudhishthira by himself would have beat Duryodhana. He could not beat Shakuni, but Krishna would have beat Shakuni. But Yudhishthira, knowing that this is a wife, it's wrong, he kept Krishna away. So that's a vice. That's an extreme desire, which is not encouraged, which led to not problems for only him, but for his entire family also, and the kingdom.
Thanks.
Any other thought, comments, or questions? Okay, like I said, I will repeat, I'll start from tapas again. That's what I'll do next week. I realized that it will take much longer, so it's not the right way to do it. So I'll repeat that and we'll continue chapter 17 next week. Any other thought? I'll just pause for a second. Okay, if nothing else, then Hari Om. We shall meet next Saturday.
Hari Om.